Well, hey there, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard, and here we are at Stuff We Can Do in Excel. Normally what we do is we talk about Excel and the different features of Excel and how to do things within the Excel framework, within the Excel platform. We also talk about Power BI and Tableau on this channel, and every once in a while I throw in a little tidbit about PowerPoint. But today we're going to do something a little different. I want to talk about a predictive analytics tool called Altman's Z-score. This is a tool that helps us to determine whether or not a company is getting ready to go bankrupt. Kind of useful tool. Let's go take a look at it. So while this video is not really about Excel, you can certainly use Excel to make this particular tool more useful to you. You could create an Excel spreadsheet that puts the data in and actually analyzes it and gives you out a result as to whether or not this company is getting ready to go bankrupt. This was the Z-score for Altman's Z-score was created by New York University finance professor Edward I. Altman in 1968. It's used to predict bankruptcy. And this makes a lot of sense that he was at New York University. He has access to Wall Street, a lot of information, probably a lot of contacts on Wall Street, so he has a lot of information, right? Plus, they would have been interested in this. It uses 5 weighted ratios to create this metric that we call the Z-score. I'm not sure I would have called it a Z-score, maybe a B-score. A Z-score is a little confusing because we also have a Z statistic in our statistical analyses. I don't know. I'm going to call it the B-score for bankruptcy. But anyway, I didn't get to do that. He's the one who invented the ratio. He gets to name it anything he wants, right? So it's a pretty successful tool. It predicts bankruptcy 2 years in advance, 72% of the time, and 80 to 90% of the time it'll predict a bankruptcy within 1 year. So it's a really useful tool. If I'm a manager or I'm an investor and I've got investments in a company, I'm going to be looking, and as this ratio starts to approach that gray area or even the danger zone, I'm going to be looking, okay, what's going on? I've got to fix this problem, right? Now, you don't want to manipulate the ratios. As we're going to see, that's what Enron does, and the result is this score isn't very useful. But what we're going to see is that this is a really useful tool for me to manage my company. So here's the basic formula for the metric. It's 1.2 times the first index, plus 1.4 times the second index, plus 3.3 times the third index, plus 0.6 times the fourth index, and plus the 1.0 times the fifth index. I've sometimes seen that fifth one be 0.99. I don't know if it really matters, but 1 is probably good enough. Now our ratios, the first one is net working capital divided by total assets. The second ratio is retained earnings divided by total assets. The third ratio is earnings before interest and taxes divided by total assets. The fourth index is market value of equity divided by book value of liabilities. And the fifth index is sales divided by total assets. So once we compute this ratio for a company, we're then going to compare it against Altman's different parameters here. So he's got different cutoff points. Anytime the Z-score is above 2.67, we're going to say that's non-distress. If it's between 1.81 and 2.67, we're going to call that a gray zone. And if it's less than 1.81, we're going to call it distress. So let's go look at the numbers for Enron. And what we see is these are the numbers for Enron for each of those years. Here's the indexes, and here's the score. Okay, so we see that for every year except for 1997, the scores are in the gray area. In fact, in 1997, the ratios were actually in the distress area. But yet, it starts to climb in 98, 99, 2000. It's starting to get pretty close to that 2.67 threshold, right? That would indicate non-distress. So what's going on? Remember, this is the same company that in all but 1997 showed that the company was manipulating financial statements. So in the 1 year that it showed they were not manipulating financial statements, that's the 1 year they were in distress. All the other years are in the gray area. There's not a single year here that says this company is not in distress. Every year says they're either in distress or they're in the gray area. Just like when we looked at the Benish M score, we saw that every single year the company was either manipulating financial statements or not, right? Only in 1 year were they not manipulating those statements. So you're going to use this comparison chart down here at the bottom to determine when your Z-score is appropriate. So again, if we highlight those Z-scores for For Enron, what we find out is that the only year that was distress was 1997, but all the other 4 years are in the gray area, in the gray zone. So that would indicate to me a problem, a looming problem ahead for us that we would want to address. So the question might be, why did analysts not pick up on the warning signs at Enron? I think they simply weren't looking. Nobody was running the Banish M-scores on this, which would predict whether or not financial statements were being manipulated. I've got another video on that topic. Nobody was computing the Altman Z-scores for this company, apparently. They were hyping this company as this company was the it company of year 2000. This is the company everybody wanted to be associated with. Every presidential candidate in the year 2000 wanted this company to be on their side. This company was going great guns. Everybody wanted to put their retirement funds in this company because it was growing so fast. Turns out it was all a shadow. Okay, it was all fake and fraud, and tens of thousands of people lost lots and lots of money. All the employees at Enron, on average, their retirement was invested about 90% in Enron stock, and their retirement went to zero. This was a real problem. And what we know, if you dig deep into the Enron scandal, what we know is that even in winter of 2000, there was an article out that said, winter of 2001, there's an article out that said this company's in trouble. Everybody ignored the article. Everybody thought the author didn't know what she was talking about. A lot of misogynist sexism going on there. Well, she's a woman. How could she understand? Unbelievable. And is the only person on the planet that actually understood there was a problem at Enron. And nobody wanted to listen to her because it wasn't in their best interest to listen to her, right? It was their best interest to stick their head in the sand, pretend like she was wrong and they were right because they were making money off this deal. Turns out she was right and they were all wrong, and they all ended up losing their shirts, and she was the one who came out shining like a rose, right? In fact, she, along with Cynthia Cooper at WorldCom and the internal auditor at Enron, were named those three women were named collectively as the Person of the Year by Time Magazine in the year 2001. So whistleblowers weren't shouting this. The auditors weren't looking for it. I contend if they had been, I would think this would be a ratio we would be computing for every company we're investing in. I don't know why we wouldn't, but we certainly should, I think. So we've got Altman's Z-score for bankruptcy prediction again. There's different models. If you have a private company versus a public company, the models are going to be slightly different. Not a lot. The cutoff points are going to be a little different, but not tremendously so. Generally speaking, a low Z-score, that's below 1.87, is correlated with companies that are underperforming the market. The market thinks this company is doing great, and actually the company isn't doing as great as the market thinks it is. So you want to look for companies that have high Z-scores. These are scores for companies that have have low likelihoods of going bankrupt, and likely if they've got high Z-scores, they're pretty strong financially. Remember, predicting bankruptcy is not a science. There are other bankruptcy models out there. I don't want to indicate to you that the Altman Z-score is the only one. There are others, but it's not a science, and there are a lot of factors that play into whether or not a company's going to go bankrupt. However, in 2023, we have seen several bankruptcies. We've seen Bed Bath & Beyond, huge anchor store in many malls, right? David's Bridal. I hope that none of you were caught up in the David's Bridal bankruptcy. Second time in 5 years David's Bridal had declared bankruptcy. And then Party City, which we have right here in Cookeville, they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now they're planning on coming back, but they're going to try to cut their debt, get people to lower their interest rates and maybe forgive some of the debt so that they can come back a little leaner, a little better company, a little healthier. I think the one here in town is actually still open, but these are three companies just in 2023 that declared bankruptcy. I suspect a lot of this had to do with interest rate increases and also with inflation. Though I do know that associated with Bed Bath & Beyond is also some financial manipulation that was going on to artificially boost stock prices. In fact, the CFO of that company committed suicide by jumping out a window on Wall Street. Not particularly pleasant, but that's what he did. Actually, I think it may have been in Times Square. It was somewhere in New York. So anyway, when you see these warning signs, pay attention to them, dig in to see if they're really truly warning signs or if they're just false alarms. See you soon. Hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, Click the like button below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.